Hello everyone. Today I'm sharing a story that will make you question everything you thought you knew about the person sleeping beside you. What happens when the perfect life you built is actually a house of cards, waiting for a single breath to blow it all down? Elena stood in the center of the ballroom, the silk of her gown feeling like ice against her skin. The laughter around her sounded wrong. Distant. Like it was happening underwater. She looked at Julian. He was laughing. He was perfect. But her hand wouldn't stop shaking. She whispered, barely audible, "It's not possible. It can't be him." 3 weeks ago, the world was bright. Julian was the man who brought her coffee every morning. The man who promised her a future built on granite and gold. He was a consultant, a man of travel and high-stakes meetings. Or so he said. But the sun had a way of exposing things. Things hidden in the shadows of his leather briefcase. Elena had been looking for a charger. Just a simple cord. Instead, she found a folder. A thick, heavy folder that didn't belong in a consultant's life. It was a mortgage statement. But the name on the document. It wasn't Vance. It was Thorne. And the address. It was 2 hours away. In a town she had never visited. She whispered to herself, Thorne? Who is Julian Thorne? Suspicion is a poison. It starts small, a single drop, and then it floods your veins. Elena didn't confront him. Not yet. She watched him sleep. She watched the man she loved breathe with the lungs of a stranger. She waited for the moment he left for his business trip to Oak Ridge. She reached into the hidden compartment of his briefcase, the one he thought she'd never find. Her fingers brushed against something cold. Something small. Something silver. She pulled it out. A baby rattle. Engraved with the initials LTL for Leo. T for Thorne. It wasn't just a second mortgage. It wasn't just a second name. It was a second life. A child. A whole other family, living in the shadow of her own. The engagement gala was supposed to be her crowning moment. The elite of the city were here. The cameras were here. Julian was at her side, his hand resting on the small of her back. His touch, once a comfort, now felt like a brand. A mark of ownership by a thief. Julian shouted, to Elena. The woman who makes every day feel like a dream. A massive roar of applause and cheers followed. Elena forced a smile. It felt like her face might crack. She looked around the room. Every smiling face, every expensive diamond, every toast. It all felt like a mockery. She was standing on a stage, performing the role of the happy bride, while her heart was screaming in a language no one else could hear. She thought to herself, smile, Elena. Just smile. Let him think he's won. Let him think you're still his little doll. Then, the heavy doors at the far end of the hall creaked open. The silence was louder than the music had been. At the entrance stood a woman. She wasn't wearing silk or diamonds. She wore a simple, faded denim jacket and a look of absolute, shattering devastation. And in her arms, a small boy. A boy with Julian's eyes. A boy with Julian's hair. Clara's voice was trembling and raw as she asked, Julian? Julian, please. Tell me this isn't real. Tell me you aren't here with her. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. A glass shattered on the floor. The room froze. Julian's hand dropped from Elena's back. His face, his perfect, handsome face, turned the color of ash. He couldn't move. The lie had finally walked through the door, and it had brought the truth with it. Julian stammered, Clara? What? What are you doing here? Then, Elena spoke. She was calm, terrifyingly steady. Oh, Julian. You forgot to tell me about your other guests. The humiliation was there, hovering like a cloud. Everyone was watching. Everyone was waiting for the scream. They were waiting for Elena to collapse, to weep, to run. But Elena Vance was done weeping. She felt a strange, cold clarity. A sense of purpose that burned hotter than her grief. She called out to the room, "Please. Everyone, please. Don't let the mood be ruined." The whispering faltered. A sudden, expectant silence fell. She walked toward the woman. She didn't look at Julian. She didn't even acknowledge his existence. She walked straight to Clara. She looked at the woman's tired eyes, the child's confused face, and she saw not an enemy, but a mirror. She said warmly, but with an edge of steel, "You must be Clara. I've heard so much about you. Please, come in. We were just about to begin the toasts. There is plenty of champagne for everyone." A stunned, collective intake of breath rose from the guests. She reached out and took Clara's hand. It was cold. Elena's was steady. She wasn't just inviting a stranger into her party. She was inviting the truth into the light, where it could no longer hide. The fallout was surgical. By the time the sun rose, Julian's world hadn't just crumbled, it had been dismantled. Elena hadn't just exposed him, she had used the evidence she'd gathered to freeze the accounts, to secure the assets. To ensure that the man who had lived 2 lives would soon have no life at all. He stood in the center of the empty ballroom, a man stripped of his mask, his wealth, and his dignity. Julian whispered, broken, "Elena. Please. I can explain. I love you. I love them both." Elena replied, her voice cold and devoid of emotion, "You don't love anyone, Julian. You just love the way you look in a mirror. And now, the mirror is broken." The sound of a heavy door slamming shut echoed through the empty hall. She didn't stay to watch him cry. She had already moved on to the next move in a game he didn't even know she was playing. Elena sat in her new, minimalist apartment. No flowers. No memories. Just the clean, sharp lines of a life rebuilt from the wreckage. She looked at the silver rattle, sitting on her marble countertop. It was a trophy. A reminder of the cost of perfection. She let out a soft, chillingly calm breath. She had forgiven him. In her own way. She had forgiven him by making sure he would never be able to hurt anyone like this again. She was no longer the bride. She was the architect. And she was just getting started. And that's the story. Sometimes the most dangerous person isn't the one who screams, but the one who smiles while they burn your world down. What would you have done in Elena's place? I'll see you next time with another story that will keep you up at night.